Hey there, what's going on? I'm looking at you. What's going on with you?
Not much. How are you? How are y'all doing?
Yeah, it's another day in paradise here in downtown Tyler, Texas. See how I said that? Tyler, Texas. And
The
I'm going to begin by asking a question, that's on everybody's mind.
Okay.
What do you think of when I say Noah's Ark?
Couple things. I wonder if if it's a real story or if it's a legend.
Real story and legend. Do you think a lot of people think that way?
Yeah, I assume so.
I would think so. Yeah, I think that's the common way of thinking. Even church-going people, kind of think, well, is that just symbolism? Is that just a legend? Is that just kind of a story from a myth and it's great? Or is that literal?
Mm.
Is that historically accurate? So, I think that's pretty normal. And those are fine questions to ask.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not like, shouldn't ask those questions. You can ask any question. Any question is open.
Thank you for that.
Especially in the scientific community. In the theological community, it should be just as open as anything else as well. Scientific, theological, they don't have to be mad at each other.
Mm.
They don't have to dislike each other. In fact, they can be very friendly. And I think,
to get along, huh?
I think that we're going to talk about a couple of things today. Question. Is your worldview, is the secular worldview, or maybe not your worldview, but a secular worldview based on scientific principles and process? Is that what you think most people do?
I still, I do believe in science, but I also believe in magic.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
let's bring in Gandalf. Gandalf, please come in. What do you think, Gandalf? Wait a minute. He's going to come back in a little bit later and tell us.
He'll be back.
Do you adhere to applying reason?
Yes.
Okay. Do you affirm applying deductive reasoning when it's called for?
Sure, yes.
And principles of logic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you like the historical process in discovering things?
Yes.
Yeah. So all those things add to the scientific method, which is to gather information, test it out. Is that right, people? Test it out, see what's going on. If it meets a certain criteria consistently, then it says, there may be truth here.
Proof.
Exactly. It's just like, what are we going to do with that truth? Whatever that happens to be, or that discovery, or those principles, can we put them with other things that we think are true, and how they interact, and all the scientific and processes and all the different things going on, especially in medicine and all the things related to that, and other things as well. Okay. We're going to talk about, the reason this is coming up is that I got, several years ago, I went out on a long trip to furthest reaches of eastern Turkey and went and took pictures of Noah's Ark.
Hopefully it'll be back here.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be right behind us. We have a green screen behind us, and we're hoping to put up...
We're not actually there?
Huh?
We're not actually there?
No, we're not. We're just holograms of reality. I don't even like saying that. Okay. On a different trip I went out there, I have a little side story I want to just quickly get into before we get to Noah's Ark and the implications.
I love hearing your stories.
Well, I have many. It's kind of blows my mind sometime that I'm here amongst the living. But that's true of everyone in a real sense. We're all very fortunate and blessed to be still alive on this side.
Every day.
A long time ago, when I was a little bit younger, I went out to eastern Turkey, and it was another trip to Mount Ararat
Okay.
to climb the mountain. And that's another story for another podcast the climbing of Mount Ararat. And that was quite an adventure. It was pretty funny and pretty wild. All kinds of things happened. But on the way out there, myself and a couple of friends, we were way out. It was hot. It was July, middle of July, and we stopped. We came up in the middle of nowhere, crossing the bridge of the Euphrates River. Mm-hmm. So we said we had been on the road for a long time, a few days, here, and just probably pretty smelly. Yeah. You know, like men
smell of the wilderness.
Just yeah. And so that was pretty rough. And so we just spontaneously said, hey, looked at each other and go, hey, stop the bus, hey, stop, you know?
Okay.
And so we got off the bus with our backpacks, said, go on. And there's no stores along here, it was just a bridge across the river. So we knew that whenever we wanted to go, we'd have to go back to the bridge and wait for transportation, which is what you can do in that part of the world. So we got off, walked up the river about a quarter of a mile. Just went down the side of the bridge and walked up the river a quarter of a mile and made a little campfire, got some soap. Water was cold and clean and clear, and got into the Euphrates River, and it was like, yo, you know, swimming in the Euphrates River, got the soap and took a bath in the Euphrates. It was just great.
Wow.
It was a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. So, did that. It was in the evening. We got off, you know, like maybe at 5 or 6 o'clock. Had some nuts and some bread and some, I don't know, some cheese, I remember. And just had a simple little meal there. And planned to spend the night, actually. It was nice. At nighttime.
Sing some camp songs.
You know, camp town races. So we did that. Had a great night. Got up the next morning, and then I took a little walk. Okay. And I went back. There, you know, of course, there's out where it's so dry out there, but there's always trees and in life along the river. So there's, you know, like these trees and stuff. So went back, took a little walk back in there, and suddenly I came to a clearing, and I was like, oh, wow, is that what I think it is? And it was. It was big old plants of Mary Jane.
Oh, wow.
Marijuana. Okay. Illegal. Yes. It's all get out in Turkey.
Right. Oh, okay.
No. Bad. So I was like, whoa. I was like, that's marijuana. Oh, yeah, it's marijuana.
You snipped something?
I did. When I was looking at it, and I thought, this would make great pictures. So I got some great pictures, you know, close up, and I like this. So I'm there, and I'm like, oh, this is good, you know. And I thought, this is pretty cool. I'm going to tell my buddies. So I'm standing there thinking about go back and say, look what I found. This, you know, it's hooch. It's marijuana. Out in the Euphrates, out in the middle of nowhere, in eastern Turkey. So I'm there looking around, and I look up on the hill. I remember about 300, maybe 400 or 500 yards away. Two guys were up there. One had a scythe. He had a scythe like that, and they were both, you know, dressed up, and they were looking down. I went, oh, crapola. Crapola. That's not my words. Yeah. That's what I thought. And I went, oh, man.
They're guardians.
So they were looking at me, I was looking at them, and I went, oh, standing with my camera, and I went, oh, and then they started to come down the hill. So I took off. Yeah. I thought, this is not good. Yeah. This in Turkey, you know, you can be, I guess, growers of stuff like that can be executed, if not there. You know, it was that bad, especially in those days. So I took off in a run, coming around, went through the little path, came to the river. Those guys were kind of hanging out, just looking around, go, grab your stuff. Don't ask questions. There's a problem. Got some guys coming. Just grab your stuff. And so they had their stuff, and they grabbed some shirts, and I go, just trust me. So they grabbed their backpacks, and I grabbed mine, and they grabbed their shirt. You know, I said, just grab whatever you can, but let's go. Don't hang out. Don't put it away. So we took off up the river. And we got they were about 100 yards behind. They came around, and they were following us up the river. And so we got up to where the bridge were. You gotta climb up a little bit. So we scurried to the top. We're up on the bridge, and they stopped down kind of below. They were just standing there like,
don't get you.
We want your flesh. Well, I don't know if they were thinking that, but it certainly felt like that. I don't know if they'd have caught us. It would have been not good news. We'd have been like, wah, wah. So, anyway.
Maybe they just wanted to smoke with you.
Yes, I don't think so. I don't think that's what was going on.
But that's quite an adventure so far.
Yeah. So that's just a little side adventure on the Euphrates going out to Mount Ararat. Different trip.
Ah.
But now let's come back to.
Oh, so you're gonna leave us hanging? Oh.
Well, I mean, they eventually. Well, I'm sorry. They eventually, we stood up there, we stared, looked,
it's just a teaser.
And we just went. I mean, I was like going, hey. No, it's like, I was talking to him in Turkish and saying, no problem, it's like, hey, it's like, hey, we're just welcome.
What did they say?
Turistas, we're just, tourists, and hey, we'll go to the bus, we're leaving, we're going, no problem. And they're like, of course, the bus didn't come, but they didn't climb either, so we're like, wait, see what happened. Yeah, so they stood there maybe five minutes, just kind of looking, and they turned around and went on back. So we're like, okay, all right. So we waited, I think only about an hour, maybe an hour and a half for a bus that we could get on. Some cars went by, but waited for a bus to come through and jumped on the bus. So went on our way. I just thought I would say that because when you're on the road, the lesson is when you're on the road, be ready for the unexpected, especially when you travel in remote places. There's always a bit of risk. There's always a bit of gifts.
Sure.
In adventure.
Yeah.
If you can just
dodge.
If you can dodge long enough. All right. May I move on to present day?
The adventures on the open road, huh?
Yeah, present day. So now as an older man, a bit wiser, a bit more life experience. In 2014, I was living in southern Turkey. I was using that as my base of operations in Marmaris, Turkey. It's on the southern coast. If you go up to Istanbul and go straight down all the way to the southern coast of Turkey, you find Marmaris. Bodrum, Marmaris, Fethiye, all those places on the southern coast. Really beautiful area. So I took a 26-hour trip by bus, made it out to what is now Mount Ararat. And the town near it is called Dobeyazit. Anyway, I made for transportation to this place that had been photographed and satellite photographed and been dug and this, but kind of ignored by the elitist, I would think, secular world. And I say that not with disrespect, but with a bit of disappointment. That stuff like biblical events or things that have great portent or great importance are sort of like laughed off. That is completely unscientific. It goes against the very spirit of the scientific process. When you're given new information or possibilities, not to check it out objectively, but to go, oh, it's something from the Bible. Oh, it's religious.
Really?
Oh, it's this. Oh, So there are those in academia that do that consistently, and it's just so petty. It's so anti-scientific to carry around that attitude. It's very biased. And everybody knows that. But the implications of something being true, such as a great big boat that matches the ark up in the mountains of Ararat at thousands of feet, that kind of is like, wow, there's got to be another explanation among many in academia. And many are taught that in those classes. And they go, oh, okay, it's a professor. Must be true. Don't be that way. We live in a day and age where you can get on and find your own information, get your own sources. We no longer have to say, oh, with academics, with religious people that say, think like I do. You know, anyone, whoever it happens to be, that says, here's what you do, here's what's correct and true. You have the ability, I have the ability, and everybody out there, you have the ability to research it yourself. Make your own gut decisions. Huh?
Is it called the Google?
It's called Google. So, Anyway, hopefully there'll be a picture up. But it really is it was just blew my mind. It's so awesome.
So when you walked up to, how close did you get to the ark itself?
I didn't climb on it.
Okay.
I got up within maybe 30, 40 feet.
Oh, that's pretty close.
Pretty close.
Yeah, so it wasn't even, guarded or no?
No, yeah, there's guards up here, but
okay.
a little bashish goes a long way.
Gotcha.
And I was the only one out there.
Yeah.
And I probably could have gone, but I didn't want to test it because the two guards up there were hanging out. I was with my driver. He knew one of them, which was a big help. And so I paid them each, I think, $10 a piece in Turkish money, or $20 total.
A little bribery.
Bashish, man.
Bashish.
You know what that bashish does. That's the way to do things. And so
grease the wheel a little bit.
Yeah, grease the wheel. You know.
But anyway, so tell us about the ark itself and what.
I have the
sure.
facts here. It says I'll be looking here and going through a quick list. You'll find this fascinating. It just blows your mind, and you can look it up. It says in Genesis 8:4 that the ark rested on the mountains of Ararat.
Okay.
So you have Mount Ararat, Little Ararat, the mountains around the Ararat Mountains. And so Mount Ararat, from where I am at the ark, is about 17 miles behind it. So you turn around, there's Mount Ararat and Little Ararat, which is, they're volcanoes. Mount Ararat is a dormant volcano. So when you're looking at the ark, it's been dug all around. They even have teams there now. It's a big deal now. They've got a big archaeological team there now. The Turkish government is planning to build a museum, the Ark Museum, this last year.
So they've confirmed
allocated,
and the test. Okay, good.
Yeah. So here's a few facts for you to consider. When you look at it from afar, it's definitely in the shape of a boat.
Okay.
Number one. Number two, when you measure it, it's right at 515 feet length, or 300 cubics. In Genesis, it says 300 cubits, which is about 515 feet, thereabouts. We're right exactly in the area. But why would it say that? The writer, whom everybody considers to be Moses, of writing down all the information officially, where was he educated? Remember when Moses was a little boy, he was found along the Nile.
Okay, yeah.
All that, the story. So, and he grew up to be a prince. Remember at first, before he gave that up? So he grew up to be a prince, and so the 500 cubics are the measurements they use in Egypt. Okay. So he's using the Egyptian measurements where he was educated. Gotcha. So that's why it says it in Genesis. So it's 515 feet or 300 cubits, as it says in Genesis. That's what it says exactly. It rests, number three, it rests on the mountains of Ararat. When you look at it and you see the petrified wood, well, they've done kind of a sonar, a radar sonar, and they see in the petrified wood slats of wood. There's slats of wood that go way down, way up and down. And in those slats, you can see where there's been fittings, holes, fittings for metal alloys, something that connected. Okay. So in the petrified wood, you can see it on the tests. I mean, yeah, really. Anybody tells you differently, just might not have researched it at all. Might have an agenda that's not scientific, because you just want accurate information, and I'm giving you accurate information. Provable information. How much more scientific can you get? Science! All right.
So what else?
Vertical rib timbers in the wood. It's all just like, again, the slats go all the way up.
So was it how tall? What's the height of the?
The height's. I'm trying to remember the height. I just
Yeah,
have
because
to
I
look it
remember
up.
from the books, and it's like 3 stories high or something like that, 2.5.
The numbers, whatever it is, the numbers. I can't recall
like
exactly.
3 stories high, and
Yes.
only 1 door, or things like that.
Well, yeah, there's a top door. Yeah. Probably not windows because of the water. So you want to make sure everything's on top. Radar scans show patterns of timbers inside the arc formation. And one last thing, just to add to this list, that is really interesting. There's a world-renowned historian in ancient times. There's several, but this one was his name, and he's known. I studied him growing up. Flavius Josephus.
Flavius Josephus.
And you've heard of Josephus. He was a Roman historian of Jewish background, but he was a Roman citizen. He was well-educated, well-respected Roman man. And he wrote this in his writings. He said, quote, and he wrote this in about around 90 AD, so 2,000 years ago. And he wrote this concerning the ark. Quote, its remains are shown there by the inhabitants unto this day. End quote. He's saying that the inhabitants up there, that he has reports taken to him by travelers, by whomever, and when the people that have been up there said, the inhabitants up there said, you can go and see the remains of the ark. Of course, this is 2,000 years ago, up there on the mountain. The mountains, and so he has just historical context. He's just writing about history. He's an historian. And he got what he thought was valid information that the inhabitants up in northern Turkey, way up there in what was then Armenia, say, hey, we can show it to you. There's the where the Ark of Noah was, or is, right here. So that's kind of interesting.
That's crazy.
That's what's wonderful. It's
Wow.
crazy too.
It's wild.
Yeah. So the question being, with all that, I don't know, what does that make you? What does that? It kind of blows your mind a little bit.
It does. It really does. And like I said earlier, it's I had. I grew up listening to the Noah's Ark as a bedtime story, a legend, and to have confirmation of it's real.
Yeah.
It's
the language of Genesis, the language used there, if you want to take it from a literary point of view, we're talking about science. Let's take it from a literary point of view. Literary point of view would be what kind of language is used there. And what's used there is historical prose, historical language. In other words, somebody that would write a history book would use the same kind of language. It's not written in using symbolic terminology. It's not written using mythical terminology at all. Like the saga or the story of Gilgamesh. That is obviously written using myth language. It's not written using historical language like Genesis uses. So literary, language-wise, the information given in early Genesis is written in using plain historical language, like you're talking about George Washington, like you're talking about Leonardo da Vinci, or one of the Caesars, from a historian. So just recall that. It's like, So literary, it meets the criteria, historical language.
okay.
Scientifically, it's just fascinating because it's verifiable
evidence,
information.
Yeah.
How you interpret it is up to you, what you want to do with it. That's subjective. But we're talking about objective information that I was there looking at. Like, hey, how you doing, Mr. Ark? Nice to meet you. Now, if that helps somebody to think about it in those terms, then that's wonderful. To consider things, especially people maybe with a secular background, to think, That's interesting. At least go, wow. And not just dismiss it because somebody tells you to. Do your own research. Do your own thing. Respect your own intellect. And respect your own gut. That's how we're made. You have that ability. That's a self-respect thing. Don't let people tell you how to think. Do I hear an amen?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Amen.
Okay, to kind of finish today up a little bit. Maybe not, try to keep it not too long, because I just really think we want to make a point about this and here's what I'd like for us to think about. Here's what I was thinking about. What helps me understand is I call it the application of the scientific process.
Okay.
See, I'm using the word about science. Noah's Ark. Science.
Not weird science, just science.
No, just not weird science. I saw that movie in the 80s. Did you see that movie?
Mm-hmm.
No, all right. Making sure. You know what's going on. I know those references. Yeah. Uh-huh. What's your favorite movie of all time?
That's
Casablanca?
that
One
is
of
a good
mine.
movie. Yep, it's a good movie.
All right. How did we get off on that? That's your fault, not my fault. I'm a victim here.
It's my fault.
Okay. Application of the scientific process. How does new information in verifiable, objective information interact with our own prior assumptions? How do you use new information, and how does it interact with our own prior assumptions? Say about the book of Genesis, or about, in this case, the Ark of Noah. If your assumption was that's just myth, and you see an ark up in the mountains of Ararat, a boat, giant boat up in the mountains of Ararat, at 10,000 feet, what does that do? Is it's like, hopefully you're going, why?
Well,
Okay.
the question is, how did it make you feel? And
Well,
how did you...
I just was just happy, and I thought it was just so cool. And it's not that made or broke anything about my own faith. That was just thought it was the coolest thing ever. God,
Sure.
our Creator, is my opinion, my belief, and my experience. Very experiential in that. And so that to me is the ultimate truth. So it didn't necessarily at all say, if we don't find the ark, or we don't find the Tower of Babel, or don't see that there was, or it's like, I don't have to. Even though time and time again, biblically, and things in the Bible have been proven to be accurate, when in the past they go, no. And it's like, there it is, it's accurate. Okay, we can talk about that another time. Question 2. Does a verifiable Noah's Ark give greater credence to other events in the book of Genesis? Do you use reason when you think? Do you use deductive reasoning when you think? So if indeed we find an ark on the mountains of Ararat, which we have found, and you'll be hearing a lot more about that in the future. You can't dodge it anymore. What does it make you think about other events in Genesis that are written in the same historical terminology? Big question there. You got to shake your head and go, "Ooh, wow." Creation? What about Sodom and Gomorrah? Oh, wow. What about the Tower of Babel? What about other stuff? And involved in all that is the great promise that the Creator made to a guy named Abraham.
Okay.
Yeah. He says, the great promise. It says, it's through your seed line that they'll become a great blessing to all the nations on the earth. That's written in the same context, his interaction with Abraham. Interesting.
Very.
Very
You gotta
interesting.
refresh my my knowledge on the book of Genesis.
Okay, a couple more questions and we'll close it out. What do
Okay.
you think? Okay. Again, let's go with that question 2 again. Just for everybody. Does a verifiable Noah's Ark give greater credence to other events in the book of Genesis? In other words, if you say, well, that was a myth. Oh, no, it's not a myth, like I've always been told. Oh, does that,
What else is
using
what else is
deductive
true?
reasoning, if that's not a myth, and that's a historical reality, how does it affect the other things that you thought, it's all, you lump it all together? Very interesting.
It's your next question.
Okay. Let's just end it with this last thought.
Okay.
I mean, aren't we thinking about something here? You know I love y'all. You know. And I don't hope I'm not coming across as any kind of like, hey, you believe like I do. I'm simply
Sharing information.
You are free. I am free. You are free. We're all free to pursue the greater realities if we so choose. And the risk is so worth what is given in return. It doesn't even compare. Last thing. Suppose a witness to an event that was dismissed as unreliable was suddenly found to be reliable or valid, even in an incredible claim. So, somebody says, you know what I saw? I saw this incredible flash in the sky. And this craft came out and flew across the sky, and there was flashing lights, and it was something like I've never seen before. And it had to be from another world. Everybody going, he's crazy. And then somebody comes along later and says, little old lady goes, I saw that up in the sky. Well, she must be crazy. And then somebody comes along and says, you know, I've got a picture of it. Here's a picture I took from my back porch. So the idea, you start having witnesses, hey, it changes things. So now you've got a story like in the ark. You know, it's just stuff.
But you know, like if I may, you know, like these days, you know, you can what is that called? Photoshop a bunch of things together, and
that guy on the back porch did that. You think? You think that old lady made that up? And you had the idea is I understand that in these days, but you know that's just so recent. That is just like just in the modern times, the last 20 years or 30 years or whatever, you know. And that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about not a trick of the light, not a trick that can be proven as Photoshop, but real verifiable, objective information. That's a good question. And there would be some that would say that simply because they don't want to think about it.
they don't want to believe.
They don't. It's like, no, there's something else. Or they'll look for somebody that thinks like them and says, I don't believe any of that. And they'll go, look, that's on the internet. I read somewhere where a guy says he doesn't believe that. And he teaches over at Bumfelter School for college graduates. And so he must know what he's talking about, because that's the way I think, and I'm going to believe him. Stop. You know?
So in conclusion,
when I say stop thinking that way, we will start with an old episode of Bob Newhart, the Bob Newhart Show. Just thought of it. Okay. You know, in the old episodes of the Bob Newhart Show in the 70s, he was like a psychologist or a counselor, and people would come to him and say, not in his office, but his friends would come and say, hey, Bob, I think they even called him Bob on the show. Really?
Okay.
He goes, hey, Bob, I got this problem. And he goes, like you've been working all day.
Okay.
He goes, I got this problem. You gotta help me with it. And he goes, nah. He goes, no, you gotta help me. You gotta help me. I'm having this problem, and I don't know what to do about this problem, and it's just bothering me. And he go, okay, give me $1. Bob will say, give me $1.
Okay.
What? Go, give me $1. He did this several times in the shows. And they go, here's $1. And he goes, thank you very much. You want my advice on what to do? And they go, yeah, well, what should I do about this problem? And he would go, stop it. Stop it right now. And he'd walk off with his $1.
That's it.
Yep. So, the idea being, if you're not doing your own thinking, and you're not doing your own research, and you're not doing your own gut level check, and you're not trusting your own intelligence, and your heart, and spirit, and mind, and thinking, I'm a seeker. If you're not trusting those things, and asking, and if you're a believer, asking for help from the giver, if you're not doing those things, stop it! You don't even have to give me $1. And I love you. We've kind of flew by night today, but I like it.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and we just want to, you might want
and just thank you for sharing your stories once again, and sharing all these wonderful photos that you have, and your insight on all this, and and thank you again.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for
such vivid
for visiting.
and wonderful stories.
Yeah, got a lot of them. I'm just we'll do. We'll save other stories for other times.
His passion right now.
Yeah. So anyway, saluting you.
See y'all next time.
God bless. Bye.
Noah's Ark.
Noah's Ark.